All right. All right. Let's hope that it works this time and I don't get cut off. My name is Frank Lavinia, and you can catch me on social media at Frank Digs Data. And today I want to talk about the Oculus Rift. So about a week ago, I got an Oculus Rift, and we can totally blame this on Noelle Silver, who I was talking to about the Oculus. She got an Oculus, and she was talking about the potential that's there. And she sent me a bunch of links, a bunch of things to kind of research and things like that. And then, um, honestly, I looked at it and I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, it's just incredible what's possible with this. So, where is my Oculus? I put it down somewhere. Here we go. This little device is revolutionary, and it's not revolutionary in the sense that there are other devices that you can get. There's Google Cardboard, there's all sorts of other things, but what makes this different is that this is a standalone device. Now, yes, you can plug it into the computer, and apparently there's also ways that you can get um, you can stream to it either over the air or with a cable. And it is an Oculus. I'm sorry, Oculus Quest. My mistake. Did I say Rift? I had Rift on the brain. So here's kind of the thing that I figured out. That's really the difference between the two. Um, the difference between the two is that. Hang on one second. Everybody wants to talk to me once I go on a live stream. I don't know what it is. So this is actually an Oculus Quest 2. And thank you, Andy. Andy's my brother from another mother. And so ultimately, what makes this revolutionary is that it's a standalone device. Oculus Rift and a couple of the other models, like the other ones that are not Oculus devices, they still require a dedicated PC. Now, the exception to that is the HoloLens. And I'm not going to talk about the HoloLens because the HoloLens is built from the ground up to be a augmented reality device. Now, the difference between augmented reality and virtual reality is that if you put these on and you can see what's actually physically in front of you with some overlays, that's augmented reality because you're seeing what's real. Virtual reality is you just see something virtual. So it's actually pretty fascinating. And I actually figured out earlier today how to get this onto an HDMI stream, which means, in other words, I can actually stream in real time right here on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, etc. What I'm seeing in the virtual world. And I will say, there's something very magical about it, particularly when you're kind of stuck at home in a pandemic, where you can kind of go through your home screen and you can turn your home screen into this beautiful vista of a desert, a home overlooking the desert, a kind of contemporary home complete with a fireplace, and the cyber one, and there's also like a ski chalet, and there's a few others too. But it's just fascinating because you can just, you're stuck kind of at home more or less, and you put on the goggles and you're immediately transported somewhere else. It's just very cool. You can walk around, you can look around. What's interesting about this is that you can set up boundaries. So this actually does have cameras on it, so you can actually have what they call pass-through mode. So you can actually see what's physically there. Now, what I've noticed so far is that there really is no augmented reality. There is augmented reality in the sense that you can draw a boundary. They call it a guardian, and once you step past that boundary, then once you get near the boundary, it kind of shows this grid. And these are all things I'm going to show on a future stream. But I just want to say, after a week of this, I am suitably impressed. I'm not sure if this is going to be the device that makes this mainstream, but considering this is $300, which is cheaper than a lot of phones, I can easily see that happening. It's standalone. It doesn't require an additional PC. Now, what's interesting is I've installed some the client tools where I should be able to be connected to my PC. So far, no computer in my house has the required specs for it, which is kind of scary because obviously I love monitors and I power multiple monitors. There's one computer I haven't tried yet, but I don't have a lot of faith in it, just because I just know it's not up to speed. So, but I don't need that. Now I say that, but maybe if I want to play Roblox on this or whatever, that might change. Um, but the short of it is that I'm suitably impressed. Now, full disclosure, I was a tablet PC MVP. I was a big believer in the tablet PC pretty early on. I was doing kind of touchscreen handwriting recognition systems in 2004. And I was a big believer in the tablet as a platform. Now, that was 2004. The iPad came out in 09, 2010. And the whole mobile revolution really, really kicked into high gear with the introduction of the iPhone in 2000 and in 2007. So, in a sense, I was definitely kind of ahead of the curve. But the devotion to one platform over the others, I think, is a mistake I will not repeat. That having been said, why I like the Oculus is that it's cheap. It's $300. Last time I looked at the virtual reality, kind of mixed reality developer kits or whatever, it was closer to $900. $600 to $900 is kind of what the price range was. And this was not a standalone device. It required to be plugged into a PC. So the fact that you can get this type of hardware with the controller, with everything you need to get started for $300 is a pretty powerful incentive. In fact, one of the stats I heard was that 2/3 of every new VR device sold is an Oculus Quest or an Oculus Quest 2. So I do know that Facebook obviously has their agenda, and this is probably going to be some kind of future-facing data collection mechanism. Maybe they're seeing it as a loss leader and they're selling it at a loss. I don't know. There certainly is a game store on there, so maybe that's the monetary play. But I do see serious value. So, for instance, there's an app on there called Engage, and I was playing around with this today, and it's basically this idea of having these virtual spaces where you can meet people and things like that. Now, what's interesting was there was a course by Oxford University, and you just attend it, and then boom, you look around, you're in this. I thought it was in Hogwarts, honestly, because it had that kind of very old British kind of boarding school type look. I'm assuming it's based on a real place in Oxford, and this avatar of the professor, she's there and she's talking about this, and there was a screen there. Now, I'm not totally convinced that that's going to be better than, say, something like YouTube, but I will say that it did add a certain experience to it. Now, one of the things that I did not expect to enjoy is that there's this app, I forget what it's called, but I will demo it next time. But it's basically kind of like 3D illustrations and 3D animations. You basically kind of are thrown into a comic book or an anime type experience, and it's fascinating because you would not think that that's a really new art form or new type of entertainment experience, but it works. There's this one thing I saw today. It was, or no, last week, called Rebel. And basically it's in this sci-fi world where, it's dystopia where music is banned and some guy's playing a saxophone and like these drone robots detect it and they come and they attack him and his friend's on the phone like, oh, you gotta hide. And you see him going through this kind of cyberpunk noir type city, and it's very cool. And you can look around and you can kind of, you feel like you're inside the narrative, which is an interesting concept because most of the time when we watch something, they talk about breaking the fourth wall, where they talk to the camera. House of Cards is probably the one who is probably the best example of that. But the whole idea of the narrative being inside, you being inside the narrative as it happens, and you can kind of explore that. Some of the other illustrations they have, you can look at the same scene from different angles. Now, some of these I think are very much kind of like, experimental. So there was one where there was a guy riding a bicycle, and you can look at the tires, you can drive along with him, you can watch him go by. It's an interesting kind of concept I did not expect. Usually, when you think of virtual reality, you think of the ability to go and explore different places. Now that is a thing too. YouTube has a VR setting, and you don't need an Oculus Quest for that. You can just go and get something you slide your phone in, and you can view videos in 360. So it's an interesting concept. I'm not sure what that means, but I would say in terms of having these experiences and training and exploring different locations. Last night I flew over the Alps thanks to YouTube VR. Explored Paris, went through Tokyo, all without leaving my house. Now I know that it's not quite the same as being there. I'm not saying it is, but it's a heck of a lot easier these days to explore those things. So I wonder if you look at the new iPhones that are out, and a lot of other phones now, they have LiDAR scanners, which basically can get you depth data as well as visual data, and you can basically map spaces. So it's not that much of a stretch to foresee a day when if you want to explore an archaeological site or explore something real like in school, you want to see the pyramids, you can study the pyramids, just put on goggles, you can walk through them, you can not quite touch them, but you can experience the entire scene with that, or the Louvre, or I mean any number of things can be done in this. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's actually something called Web VR, or actually now the standard is called Web XR, to include mixed reality and augmented reality. Um, I think the future for this is bright. Now, I know I've said this before. I know, and this was something that Noelle and I kind of talked about. Was like, yeah, it's been there before. I've played around with this before. This is not my first rodeo in VR, whether it's VRML in the 90s or whether it's in the 2000s with Adobe Atmosphere. Adobe Atmosphere was a 3D solution loosely based on VRML, but it was a really great modeling tool for building out worlds. And one of the things that I built out was a virtual trade center. So many of you know or don't know, I was at the World Trade Center. I was late for work. I survived. But one of the things that I did when I was home and really didn't want to go anywhere and found myself out of work was I basically got into Adobe Atmosphere because it was great. You can build these virtual worlds. One of the things I built was to the World Trade Center and kind of that center plaza, which I think was called Tobin Plaza. And it was very therapeutic to kind of go there and build it. Now, Adobe Atmosphere, unfortunately, was killed, I think, in 2004 in favor of, I don't know why they killed it. The press release at the time said that it was going to be part of, PDF format and 3D formats. Here we are, 16, 17 years later. I don't see any 3D support in PDF. It's really a shame that they killed it, because it was a great technology. It had a really rich developer community. It just had something about it. Now, it was not goggles or whatever, but you can kind of explore the world in 3D. It was very much ahead of its time. And so over the years since then, I've not done anything with VR substantially, right? There was always an opportunity when I was in evangelism to, evangelize the HoloLens. And as much as I thought the HoloLens was cool, I just didn't see it really taking off as a commercial product. Now, it's had a couple of good runs. It's had good success. It's primarily meant to be I think an enterprise tool. I think that's really where they're going with it. But again, I'm not convinced that Microsoft is going to be in it for the long haul. I'm just not convinced. Now, that's the Silverlight developer in me. That's the owner of a Cortana speaker in me that's saying that. When Microsoft commits to something to the long haul, they make something excellent and outstanding and industry changing. Um, Xbox is probably the canonical example. But other consumer products, they haven't really. And they've made a very conscious decision. Somewhere along the way, they stopped showing the Minecraft demo, right? And they started focusing more on enterprise uses. And that's because a HoloLens is a very expensive device. It's something about $2,000 to $3,000, and that's not going to be a home device for the masses. Um, this is an order of magnitude cheaper. I think that you're going to see more of these. You're going to see other types of things. Ultimately, it's just so much cheaper. And Facebook obviously has the money to burn. And this has the potential of being kind of the next generation of entertainment. One thing that's particularly interesting is there's an app in there called Virtual Desktop, which basically you can stream your desktop and you can have multiple monitors. Now, obviously, in the real world, I have that, but it would be interesting to kind of experiment. Like, if you're on the travel or you don't have a big TV, one of the ways you can watch YouTube and some other videos, I think Netflix is in there too, is it looks like you have watching it at a cinema. NBC has an Olympics experience where you can kind of watch the games, obviously recorded now, but you can watch it in kind of this big theater. I don't know. There's something about it. There's just something about it that works. I think that it's definitely worth playing around with. I think it's very nascent. Facebook is also working on something they call the metaverse, which I also think is an interesting concept. If you think about what science fiction authors in the 90s thought the internet would evolve into by now, think Johnny Mnemonic, think Lawnmower, well, not so much Lawnmower Man, but, Snow Crash is a good example. It's an interesting idea. I think the time has come. I think the idea of virtual reality or mixed reality, there's rumors that there's going to be glasses that have a screen in them, akin to Google Glass, coming out by Apple. I don't know if this is true, but it's just interesting that we're at that point where that's feasible. Maybe not practical, but it's at least feasible or a commercially viable product. So with that, I will see you in the metaverse. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everyone who commented live. If you have any questions or thoughts about virtual reality or mixed reality, drop them in the chat. I always answer. And you have a great day.